So why did Paul McCartney begin Here, There, and Everywhere? Well, partly it was because John Lennon was still asleep. You see, Paul had arrived at Lennon's home in Weybridge for a writing session, but John had not yet gotten out of bed. With perhaps 20 or 30 minutes to spare, Paul took his guitar outside, sat beside the swimming pool, and began working through the chords. By the time John finally appeared and had his coffee, much of the song was actually already finished. Paul later admitted that he could not clearly remember whether John contributed anything substantial after that. The lyrics are often linked to McCartney's girlfriend, Jane Asher, but his own detailed accounts never identify a particular woman or real-life event. Even the mysterious person speaking in the second verse was apparently not a romantic rival. McCartney has suggested it was probably just a television playing while the couple ignored it. Although the song sounded modern in 1966, one of its biggest influences came from music that McCartney's parents might have enjoyed. He wanted to imitate the structure of Irving Berlin's Cheek to Cheek, a song from 1935 performed by Fred Astaire. McCartney especially admired the way the song wandered through its story before circling back to its opening thought. He also borrowed the old-fashioned practice of placing a short introductory passage before the song's main melody. So that's why Here, There, and Everywhere begins with 2 lines that never return. McCartney and Lennon were fascinated by these forgotten introductions, which older songwriters had treated as separate verses before reaching the part everyone remembered. And who else but the Beach Boys supplied the other major piece of the puzzle? McCartney had become deeply impressed by Brian Wilson's writing and arranging, particularly God Only Knows, and wanted the Beatles' harmonies to have some of that floating, carefully layered quality. The influence was strongest in the opening and the backing vocals, rather than in a direct copy of Wilson's song. McCartney combined that California sound with the older Fred Astaire-style structure, creating a record that somehow felt both nostalgic and completely new at the same time. The words Here, There, and Everywhere became markers guiding the listener through the verses until the song quietly returned to all 3 at the end. The recording was far less casual than the poolside beginning suggests. The Beatles worked on it at EMI Studios on June 14th, 16th, and 17th in 1966, recording 13 takes before settling on the basic performance and then building the finished track through overdubs. Much of the work went into the close backing harmonies sung by McCartney, Lennon, and George Harrison. For his lead vocal, Paul deliberately used a small and delicate and nearly falsetto voice while imagining he was singing like Marianne Faithfull, an influence almost nobody would have guessed from the finished record. And to be clear, the Marianne Faithfull influence was on the way he sung, although the lyrics are supposed to be about Jane Asher. But anyway, his vocal was also recorded with the tape running at a different speed, raising and lightening his voice during playback. And those studio choices helped give the performance its strangely weightless feeling. The greatest reward for McCartney came from the one person whose approval mattered most. He remembered listening to a cassette of the song with John in a hotel room after a day of skiing. As Lennon removed his ski boots, he casually told McCartney that the song was good. Compliments between the 2 men were uncommon enough that McCartney carried the memory for decades. Lennon later named it among his favorite Beatles recordings and considered it one of the strongest songs on Revolver. McCartney and producer George Martin also counted it among their favorites. So yeah, a love song written while one Beatle waited for another to wake up became one of the rare compositions that John, Paul, and George Martin all openly agreed was something special.